Rev up your engines!
Well, many of you may have been saddened by the death of Val Kilmer, and no, I'm not directly related to him, although Kilmers aren't there many of them. Kilmer is German for man who lives next to a river or stream. And the day that Val Kilmer died, I happened to be on the Pecos River, staying in this beautiful cliff house, and it was just a mile or so down the road from Val Kilmer's giant ranch that he had, 6,000 acres, where he had that famous tree house built to try to lure his kids back from LA to come visit him when they were young. So I was just down the road from his place when he passed away. Now, you can learn a lesson from this, and that is, don't smoke. My father was a smoker too, but my father lasted like 20 more years than Val. My father was a chain smoker. I guess Val had his genes either weren't as good or he smoked a lot more than my father did. It also shows that, hey, you can have all the money and fame in the world, but you can't buy any more time on this planet. So my advice is, take after me and not him. Don't smoke. That's one of the few vices that I don't have. I was never really a smoker. Doesn't matter how much money, how much fame you have, well, it's all time to go sometime. And if you want it to be later than sooner, hey, don't smoke. Well, if you think things are getting more and more expensive, hey, it's not your imagination. You are not being paranoid. You are facing reality, because this is a new record. Over 17% of Americans who are buying brand new cars are paying over $1,000 a month payment for their car. They are 7-year notes. All right, so that's $84,000 you just paid for that car. Well, if it's still running after 7 years, right, you have paid $84,000 for a car that the average car is like $48,000. So you've almost paid double what you thought the car cost, right? So, up to 19.8% of Americans buying new cars, almost 20%, are taking these 7-year, 84-month loans out to buy a car. They don't know what they're headed into. For example, let's say we are headed into a recession. Say it goes on for a year, 2 years. The price of cars is going to go down, yet you're stuck with this expensive car that you signed an 84-month agreement to pay. And let me tell you something. Try to refinance a car. Refinancing houses when the interest rates and stuff go down, yeah, that's doable. You still have to pay a penalty and stuff, right? But try refinancing a car. Good luck finding anybody who's going to do it, right? They'll say, oh, car values are going down. We don't want to refinance your car. It's not worth anything. You'll probably be what they call upside down, that you owe so much more on a car than it's worth. It would make your head spin. So listen to Scotty. Don't sign the contract. Don't get an 84-month loan like almost 20% of Americans are doing now. Well, here's an interesting one. As tariffs are upending the auto industry, Ford and Stellantis are turning to tried and true employee discounts. They are giving discounts to their employees in the hope that they will buy their cars. Henry Ford kind of did a similar thing, but worked a lot better. Was Henry Ford paid his workers a lot more money than the other factory workers, and all the other rich guys back in the day said, stop that, Henry, you're paying them too much money. You'll ruin our big deal of us taking all the money, right? Well, Henry Ford realized if I pay these people enough money, they'll buy the car. So he had a good thing going. It worked out pretty well for him, right? Not only are they giving these discounts to the employees, but Ford and Stellantis said they are going to extend employee discounts to all consumers. Realize that these companies have a lot of wiggle room in prices, what they're going to actually charge for stuff. Like when you go to any store and they'll say, it's 1/3 off. 1/3 off, right? But it's 1/3 off an inflated price in the first place. So it's not like you're getting 1/3 off of what it actually costs to build the stuff. You're getting 1/3 off of an inflated price already. And now they're saying, well, they'll give discounts to everybody. They got to do something to sell their vehicles. They have backlogs of vehicles now. They're not selling. What are they going to do? They got to do something. And of course, if you're putting tariffs on them, it's going to get even worse. Because if you don't understand, next time you go look at a used car, especially new cars, do this. Open the door, look at the VIN number. The first number will tell you where the vehicle was made. Sometimes they're honest. It'll say made in Mexico, made in the United States, made in Canada, right? But a lot of times it's hidden away. So that first number really means something. If it was made in Mexico or Canada or someplace else, there's going to be a big tariff on it, right? So to get people to buy these cars, they're saying, well, we're going to give you this discount on this. It'll be interesting to see if the discount they're going to give are discounts on cars only made outside the United States, or the whole shooting match. And if you see it's made outside the United States, or made inside the United States decide, hey, is there a price differential for it? Is the one made here cheaper, or is the one made in Mexico cheaper? Because normally here in the United States, they don't price them that way. They don't say, well, the car's made in Mexico, so hey, it costs less to make, we'll charge you more. They charge the same price for both of them. So, do a little research. Well, Donald Trump says he doesn't want stocks to go down, but, quote, sometimes you have to take medicine. Okay, well, let's face the facts. He's probably not taking much medicine himself because he's a real estate guy, right? Guess what? Stocks go down. The real estate doesn't follow that quickly. Sure, the value can go down, but it's not like the stock market. I mean, you could have a stock that's $100 today. Tomorrow it might be $5. Rarely will you see real estate that today it's worth $500,000 and tomorrow it's worth $10,000. It doesn't work that way. It's completely different economics, right? He cited the trade deficit with China in a speech saying that creates all these pains in the market. Nah, that's been going on for a long time, right? It's been going on for a really long time. And the dynamics of all that stuff is starting to change because now, for example, China is the number one auto market in the world. More cars are sold there than anywhere else. We used to be number one. Now we're number two, right? So you can't blame this trade deficit on all of that, especially if you think about it. Hey, if they're now the number one buyer of the stuff, their market is growing like mad. We should start selling them stuff, right? And, of course, putting a tariff on their stuff coming here does the exact opposite because then they're putting tariffs on our stuff. We'll sell even less stuff to them. And if you really start a tariff war, all that does is put money in the coffers of governments. And what do governments like doing? Taxing people. If you want to see the ultimate result of insane taxation of everything, look at Great Britain. Great Britain is a gigantic mess. 60-something% of the population is on public welfare of some sort, some type of public assistance, right? England doesn't create much of anything anymore. The tariff system doesn't work. Britain even tried the EU thing. In the EU, then they left, right? Because, of course, the English people were going to get peed that all their stuff was coming from Europe. Then their farmers wouldn't have any way to make money. They'd go out of business, and it created a giant mess, right? So this whole thing that they think tariffs are going to help anybody, all that does is put money in the government's coffers. The English government has a lot of money because they tax everything. They have double taxation, triple taxation. They have what's called VAT, value added. Every time value is added, there's a tax added to the processed clothing material, right? Then that's taxed. And then when that material is turned into a sweater or whatever, socks, that's taxed. And then when you buy it, there's another tax. No wonder things are so expensive in England, right? If you think you're going to balance the budget through tariffs, you're out of your mind. It only leads to more rapid inflation of everything costing more. Any fool can see that. Just look at England. Look at Canada. They're in an economic mess. We all know what waste the government has in just about anything that it does. Give them more tax and more money, there'll be more things wasted. It's not a more efficient system. Let's face the facts. Well, the J.P. Morgan CEO Jamie says that the Trump tariffs are going to boost inflation and slow down an already weakening U.S. economy. And unfortunately, I have to agree, but it was happening anyway. You have to look at things in terms of both politics and economics. Now, if you look at what's happened in the last 8 years, we lived in a relatively inflationary economy that had one bad thing. It was all deficit spending. The government kept borrowing money. The debt kept getting bigger. And eventually, you have to pay the piper. Somebody's got to pay for this borrowed money, and it's going to create a giant mess. They can try to blame this whole thing on Trump and his tariffs, but that's kind of a sideshow of what really is going on. And what's really going on is you can't keep borrowing money forever. Eventually, you got to pay it back, right? And if you don't know, this payback is a lot more complex than it is. People say, the Chinese, they've invested so much in the United States. Guess what? The Japanese have actually invested more in the United States than the Chinese in terms of the debt that was purchased. So it's a really complex thing, right? And you can't just get a simple thing and say, okay, this is a problem because he created these tariffs. Hey, the problem is there. The problem is the elephant in the room that nobody wants to talk about, which is borrowing money to run stuff and just keep borrowing. Eventually, it comes home to roost, and now, hey, we're all going to have to pay the piper for what all of these politicians have been doing for basically over a decade and a half. Well, U.S. crude oil has fallen below $60 a barrel for the lowest since 2021. And they're saying, again, it's the tariff-fueled recession fears. A lot of this is stuff that has to do a lot more than tariffs. We live in a worldwide economy, and it sure looks like the whole world is going into a recession. I just read an article about Chinese people buying electric cars in China. And they were whining that. And they're saying, look, I bought this car for $100,000. Now it's a year old. And I can't even get $40,000 for it. Right? You can see there's a recession starting there, too. And people aren't spending the money. They don't have the money to spend. If they borrow the money, it costs more money to borrow it. So guess what? They're not buying stuff. And you know what happens when people don't buy stuff? The price goes down. That's economic. It doesn't matter if China, a supposed communist country, which of course is a lie, it's a capitalist dictatorship, if anything. It has nothing to do with communism anymore. People are buying and selling and have stock markets, ownership of property, all non-communist things. So we're basically in a global capitalist economy these days. And there's a recession coming. It's going to hit the whole world. Just like the problem they had with that prime swap derivative years ago, where the whole world went into a recession because people were borrowing money with the domino effect. It affected people all over the world. I had a friend in Australia. He was affected by it. It almost bankrupted the country of Iceland. They almost went bankrupt because they did a lot of banking and they got in over their heads, right? The fact that oil is getting so cheap, it's pretty much showing that we are starting to go into a recession. If we're not in there already, and they can try to blame it on this tariff-fueled recession, but that's just a bunch of nonsense. That may be the straw that broke the camel's back, but that camel's back was already full of a bunch of stuff, and that one straw, maybe it affects it somewhat. They'll try to blame it on that. There's a whole bunch of reasons that the stuff is going on. You can't just blame it on one simple thing like that. It may kick it over a little bit further, but with oil getting that low, oil is always a pretty good gauge of what's happening to the economy. You don't know how much money is involved in this oil. All the gasoline that we use in the United States every year. We use 137.5 billion gallons of gasoline a year. That's a lot of oil, right? So it really affects the economy. And if the price of that is going down, that's telling you there's a storm a brewing. Well, hardy har, the British are finally realizing they screwed up. The British government is now relaxing electric vehicle rules to protect their automakers from the Trump tariffs, because of course, you know, the British think we're all going to be driving electric cars, la, 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 la. Well, let me tell you something. If I was living in England, I would not listen to the British government, because the last time I went there, I talked to a guy waiting on the train. The train was late. The toilet was backed up. The baggage compartment one in the back, oh, they couldn't get in. They said the lock was broken, so they said, bring your bags on the train with you. This is a train that went 165 miles an hour. We're going to go electric. Back then, he said, this was a few years ago, he said, look, the British government said, hey, we don't even need cars. Our trains go all over. And then what did they do? They shut the trains down to a lot of the smaller areas that they weren't economically viable. So then they left these people with no trains. And if they didn't buy a car, they'd have no car either, right? Then the guy tells me, they told us, let's buy diesels. It's better gas mileage. Then they said, diesels pollute too much. We don't want diesel cars anymore, after people had already bought the diesel cars. Well, now they're kind of revamping the whole thing, and they're pushing hybrids more than purely electric cars. Of course, the laws, they can say electric type cars, right? Because hybrids have batteries and electric motors, so they also have gasoline motors, so they can call them electrified vehicles, right? A little change of the rules and everything. Forget what we said before, now we got new rules. So it turns out that the British government has eased their targets that forced automakers to sell more battery electric vehicles in Great Britain, which of course the people weren't buying. They use Trump as tariff as an excuse. Everybody in the world now is using Trump tariffs as an excuse to why they got to change things, right? And these problems existed long before this. They're just using it as an excuse so they don't look barefaced that, oh, well, we screwed up with these battery electric cars. Oh, no, it's Trump's fault. We'll include hybrids now, right? It's hilarious how the world is tied in these days, isn't it? So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.